Hey, it's Jordan with TYT Politics, and I'm here with Dr. Jill Stein. You really tore down the roof here at the Burt's Warehouse Theater. We're in Detroit. I kind of wanted to start right there. I think Detroit is in many ways a symbol for the disappearing middle class, Bernie called it. You've talked about how our middle class has been crushed. It's coming back in a lot of ways as well, but you saw starting in the 80s, the jobs offshore, the union bashing, bringing that to today. Jobs report recently, 150,000 jobs, underemployment rate near 10%. You talk about the crisis. Can you kind of talk about Detroit, the jobs report now, and what you could do in this crisis? Because it seems the other candidates are kind of talking more of the same.
Yeah, exactly. I think Detroit is kind of the poster child. Detroit got hit hardest and got hit first, but this is where America is going. This is the ongoing impact of NAFTA. It's the impact of the TPP, which is up and coming if the Democrats and Republicans have their way. It is the offshoring of our jobs. It's the closing of our factories. You know, Detroit is really the symbol of an economy that's been devastated. The Congressional Budget Office just put out a report, I think it was last week, showing the unbelievable concentration of wealth in the hands of a few. The upper 10% now has over 75% of the wealth. The bottom 50% has less than 1% of the wealth. So this is just not a survivable situation. So what we're calling for is a Green New Deal, which is an emergency jobs program. This is the anti-NAFTA. This is the anti-TPP. This is the solution to create those jobs on an emergency basis, to actually provide the grants and the incentives to actually create the small businesses, the worker cooperatives that are the backbone of the green renewable energy economy of the future. And we need it now. We can't wait. We need it now. So we actually call for doing a New Deal kind of program now on an emergency basis, creating 20 million jobs in clean renewable energy, a healthy, relocalized, and sustainable food system, and public transportation. That's sort of the crux of it. That's what we need in order to revive the economy, and it's what we need if we are going to stop this climate catastrophe that's barreling down on us.
What does that look like concretely? Let's forget the pundits and everybody who says you got no chance. Let's say you're a president within first 6 months to a year. How do you pass that through this Congress and also kind of change the culture here where we are, America buying for the corporations? How do you get 20 million jobs, not in 6 months, but how do you start having a government again that invests in its people?
Exactly. I mean, this is why we need an organizer-in-chief in the White House, so that we actually have the bully pulpit that's being used to inform and empower the American people who should be the driver of our democracy. We know that there is public support for a jobs program. We know that majorities actually support the right to a job and for a government job, for that matter, if the jobs are not forthcoming from the private sector. There is support for this. The costs of this are actually small compared to the cost of the climate crisis, if it's allowed to continue, and the cost of our ongoing health care crisis. We know that by moving to clean energy, we actually save 200,000 lives per year, and that's just the tip of the iceberg of all the diseases related to fossil fuels. So it turns out this pays for itself, just in terms of the health benefits alone are enough to pay the cost of the transition. So it's simply a matter of providing the money up front that will be repaid in our health savings, not to mention our climate savings and the savings in our war budget, which is devouring half of our discretionary budget. So there are so many efficiencies that get brought to bear here. This actually pays for itself. The bottom line is this is a matter of public will. When Pearl Harbor was bombed, the American people didn't ask questions. The crisis we're looking at right now is not about one harbor, it's about all harbors. They're gone as soon as potentially 2050, which is what the science points to now. So we're calling for a wartime scale mobilization because it's absolutely essential. The cost, by the way, is far smaller than the cost of the Obama stimulus package, around $800 billion. This would be about $500 billion to get this program up and running, and the benefits would be so massive by scaling back fossil fuels, by bringing in efficiency, conservation, and renewable energy, that immediately we would see that pay off. We also, call for downsizing our military because it's not making us safe, it's making us less safe. Not to mention, we could also tax Wall Street. Why should the most profitable sector of the economy not be paying a sales tax? Everyday Americans are paying the sales tax on just about everything. All sectors of the economy are paying it. Wall Street needs to pay it. That can provide us the hundreds of billions of dollars. It's not a question of how. It's a question of public will, and it's a question of who. Who is leading our government? Are we a democracy that's of, by, and for the people, or are we the same old on behalf of the fossil fuel giants and the war profiteers? I think the American people are saying which direction we need to go.
I want to ask you about Black Lives Matter. I was at the protests outside of this church. Trump's going to talk to this black church today. I'm not even going to get into that. Obviously, also the Democratic Party, it came out this week that their strategy entailed with Black Lives Matter. Oh, you could go talk to small groups behind closed doors, but don't promise them anything. Contrast that to, I was interviewing some of the African-American protesters today who say we have to vote for Hillary. It's not even a debate. When I mentioned you, they said, what has Jill Stein done for black people? What has Jill Stein done for black people?
Well, if you go to my Facebook page, you can see the live stream that we did on the steps of the Los Angeles City Hall, where I actually went with the Black Lives Matter encampment that has been occupying the steps of City Hall for about 54 days now, and went with them to support their demand and to actually call on the mayor to fire the police chief who's overseeing the most violent police force in the nation. More deaths at the hands of LA police than anywhere else. So, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a candidate who's actually on the front lines working with the communities, and it's not only in LA, it's in San Francisco, working with the Frisco Five and supporting the struggles on the front lines and lifting them up. A couple weeks ago, I was in southern Louisiana working with the African American community there, calling attention to the fact that the community of color has not had the relief, has not had the agencies coming in and the nonprofits, and, as usual, are being the last to be restored as they were, again, still in Katrina, where 100,000 African Americans have not been able to move back. And we not only helped lift up the cause, we helped raise money for some of the people in the communities that were fundraising in order to bring relief. So we've been doing very concrete stuff. We've been there on the front lines. I'd say go to our Facebook page and listen to the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement who have seen us on the front lines. I've been there on the front lines with Reverend Pinckney, who's a political prisoner in the one African American community that actually had prime lakefront property that was stolen by the Whirlpool Corporation. And I've been there repeatedly to stand up for the people of Benton Harbor and to stand in defense of Reverend Pinckney, who is a political prisoner who is doing time now 2 to 10 years for having participated in a recall campaign against the mayor that sold out to the Whirlpool Corporation. So, I am on the front lines 24/7 for the Black Lives Matter movement, for the immigrant rights movement. The media would prefer that people not know about what Ajamu Baraka and I are doing of, by, and for this movement. That's why we need to break the sound barrier. That's why we need people to go to our website, jill2016.com, and join our campaign to open up the debates, because in America we not only have a right to vote, we have a right to know who we can vote for. And if we're not in the debates, there will be no voice on behalf of Black Lives Matter. There will be no voice on behalf of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to bring this ongoing legacy of slavery to a screeching halt. There will be no voice for reparations for the African American community for the debt that is owed for that blood, sweat, and tears and labor on the part of the African American community. There will be no voice to actually fix the climate crisis, to end the wars, and to dismantle the nuclear weapons which are on hair trigger alert right now. We need to tell the truth so that we can empower the American people. There are more than two lethal choices in this election, and it's a race to the bottom between the lesser evil and the greater evil. Donald Trump says horrific things, but Hillary Clinton has a terrible track record. We don't need to settle for either of them. We can lead the way forward.
Good segue. The neocons are lining up like ducks in a row for Hillary Clinton. There's a report that just came out. Henry Kissinger is soon to be endorsing her. Meanwhile, overnight, more airstrikes, U.S. towards ISIS on the Syria-Turkey border. It seems like it's only accelerating, the airstrikes, the drones. What does this say that some of the, most prolific, war-first people are lining up for her? Yes, they're scared of Trump, all this. And even President Obama, all the media is going to start with the legacy pieces about him. It seems that this entrenched military-industrial complex, how do you fight that? How do you change that as president?
So I think what you saw going on here in Detroit is exactly how we change that the community knows that there is no way forward, and it's mainly the fear-mongering around Donald Trump that's being used to extort a vote out of not only the African American community, but progressives are being told, be good little boys and girls and keep voting for what's been throwing you under the bus. But by actually setting the record straight, by engaging the African American community with my running mate, who is a member of the oppressed communities, who can actually speak of, by, and for oppressed communities and about why we actually need to stand up for what works, and to remind people that what lifts up Donald Trump is this economic misery, this desperation in which demagogues thrive. Where did that come from? These were the policies of Bill Clinton, supported by Hillary, that created the Wall Street deregulation that led to the meltdown and the disappearance of 9 million jobs, with the theft of 5 million homes. It was the Clintons that brought us the crime bill, the omnibus crime bill that opened the floodgates to mass incarceration. And it was the Clintons who promoted, and Bill who signed, NAFTA that sent our jobs overseas. So, and needless to say, while the Republicans are the party of hate and fear-mongering towards immigrants, the Democrats have been the party of deportation and detention and night raids. So we're not going to solve this. It's not okay to ban Muslims from coming into this country, but it's not okay to be bombing millions of Muslims around the world and actually killing 1 million Muslims in Iraq who paid the price in the war in Iraq, which Hillary, again, helped lead the charge for. So it's very important not to be force-fed the Kool-Aid that they are trying to pump down our throats with what's a little bit like waterboarding. We're being Kool-Aid boarded here by this toxic propaganda that's trying to brainwash us into a sense of powerlessness.
We are not limited to just two deadly choices.
One point that's really important, Alice Walker said, the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. We actually have the power. Remember this, There are 43 million young people who are locked into predatory student loan debt. The Democrats do not offer a way out any more than the Republicans. In fact, the Democrats have been as much a part of the financialization of student debt that has locked people into these predatory loans. So, you know, we're saying that the Democrats will not solve it. There are 43 million young people. That is a winning plurality of the presidential vote in a three-way race. Just by getting the word out to millennials who do a pretty good job of networking when they start hearing about it, we can bring out enough people to actually take over this election, to end student debt by bailing out the students. We bailed out Wall Street. It's about time to bail out their victims. Making public higher education free. We can create an emergency jobs program that also fixes the climate crisis, a welcoming path to citizenship, an end to police violence, and a foreign policy based on international law and human rights. We have the power. When we stand up, we have not only the solutions we need, we have the numbers that it takes to actually win the day. So we say, reject the lesser evil, fight for the greater good, like our lives depend on it, because in fact they do.
Last question. You've heard the Nader comparisons, all of this. I don't want to get into that, but I want to know specifically, what is your strategy? I know it's kind of a Hail Mary at this point. You've talked about if we could just spread the word to the 43 million students. I agree, but that's not an easy thing to do. Also, I saw you qualified on the New Hampshire ballot today, but you're still far short of all 50 states. What is the strategy, early September, so less than 2 months away?
So first, we are falling short in a couple of states, a handful of states, and they're low population states as well. So we expect to be on the ballot for probably 95% of voters, probably 47 states. That means a couple we've missed, extremely oppressive states, but we will be there for most. In a couple, we will have write-ins. So most voters will actually have a real choice. Our strategy.
You expect to hear back from the states you're waiting on before the election?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yes, there will be final rulings where we are challenging. Right now, the numbers are looking like it will be 47 states with a handful of low population states, so it's probably going to be about 95% of voters. So it's enough votes that we could win this election if people had the courage of their convictions and actually stood up. If we can get the word out to millennials who are pretty good at getting the word out themselves. And I would remind people, we had our 1 hour of prime time on CNN where we were trending #1 on Twitter because people were absolutely ecstatic to hear things that you are not allowed to say on primetime TV that we actually said, and the public is hungry for this.
And they tried to cut you off at quite a few turns. But go ahead.
They sure did, and we didn't let them. The public, we are coming up in the polls without having any visibility in big media. And remember, the polls are largely expected voters. But what we are doing is bringing out unexpected voters. We are empowering disempowered voters like the people you saw here today, like millennials who've been sitting it out recently, like the labor movement, which has also found it very hard to vote on behalf of midterm Democrats. We are giving people a reason to come out and vote, and we hope to be able to, overwhelm the polls and what they've been saying. The name of the game here is to get into the debates, because if people hear that there is this other option, remember, this is a unique election. We've never been in an election like this before. We're seeing a political realignment. We're seeing the Republicans fall apart, with Donald Trump taking a small remnant of Republicans over the cliff. We're seeing the majority of the Republican leadership actually rally behind Hillary Clinton, the neocons, the leadership of the military-industrial complex, the Meg Whitmans, the so-called centrist Republicans. They're all lining up behind Hillary. Hillary is reaching out to them, has now a formal, a campaign to reach out to Republicans. So we're seeing a complete political realignment. The Democrats are becoming the one happy demo Republican family, and progressives have been thrown out of the Democratic Party in the incredible, outrageous mistreatment of the Sanders delegates, both at the convention, the emails that were released showing how the Democratic Party colluded with Hillary Clinton's campaign and with members of the corporate media in order to basically sabotage them with the kill switch that the Democratic Party has used over and over again to basically dismantle progressive campaigns. They allow them to be seen and heard in order to entrap people back into the party and then sabotage those campaigns. And remember this, both parties have been marching to the right, the greater evil and the lesser evil. Now those big parties may be merging. They are not going to solve it for us. We need to stand up and solve this for ourselves. We are the ones we've been waiting for. Remember, we actually have the numbers that it takes as well as the solutions that it takes. The lesser evil is not a solution. People do not come out and vote for lesser evil politicians who've been throwing them under the bus. That's why Democrats keep losing in Congress and in the House of Representatives and the Senate and in our state legislatures and in governorships. The Democrats keep giving it over to the greater evil. It is not a solution. It is a propaganda campaign. We are the ones we've been waiting for. Stand up, forget the lesser evil, fight for the greater good, like our lives depend on it, because in fact they do.
I will see you on Monday in North Dakota. Thank you for taking the time. Bye-bye.